There's been an interesting shift in the Heisman Trophy conversation around Ohio State football the last couple of weeks as C.J. Stroud becomes the betting favorite on some sites. I think there's been sort of a swell of opinion from the people who cover the team that maybe Garrett Wilson is the guy that people need to be looking at a little bit closer for that award. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Means and Doug Lesmerises, who just talked to Garrett Wilson as part of our interviews here today, pre-Michigan State interviews that Ohio State is doing. Doug, you wrote after the game on Friday, after Garrett Wilson came back from missing a game and had a huge game against Purdue, that maybe this is the guy that people need to be talking about. Why?
Because I think he's their best football player. And so I wrote that, and then coincidentally, Bill Landis also wrote the same thing after the game.
Coincidentally. No, it's a coincidence.
We share a brain. But I think he's their best football player. I think he's going to be, if I had to bet right now, I think he'll be the first guy drafted off this team, which in the next draft, which is not the end-all be-all, but it is one way of evaluating players. And it's not going to. I asked him about it today. I said, because he had been asked about C.J. Stroud as a Heisman candidate, and he said very warm, genuine things about C.J. And I loved the way he talked about the conversations that he and C.J. Stroud have during the week. That he said C.J. Stroud will text him, will say, this defender, I'm seeing him do this. We're going to make him pay for that on Saturday. And so I said, well, what about you? And he's like, oh, no. It's got to be the quarterback. It's got to be the quarterback. And as Stephen pointed out, the receiver won it last year, but also the receiver last year won it because his teammate who was as good as him got hurt. And they have three dudes here at receiver, and it's just not going to happen. But I wish the Heisman voters, I would go direct you guys on this YouTube channel to the live feed that's now up there of everybody talking on Tuesday. I directed you. I said, go watch Brian Hartline a couple weeks ago. It's 30 minutes. It's worth it. Garrett Wilson's probably 15 minutes. It's worth it. Sometimes you don't want to wade through those things. He was like Professor Football today. He even had glasses on. Like, I want to take Garrett Wilson's football class. He's so smart about the game. And then when he jumps in the air to catch a football, he said his mom made him take gymnastics when he was a kid, and you can see all that in play. He is a complete football player mentally, I think emotionally, and handling like the pressure of all this kind of stuff, and then physically, speed, hands. He's just great. And I know I'm on your corner, Stephen, but like Garrett Wilson, Professor Football today, I was like, sign me up for a full year of that class.
I wrote before the season in a kind of a season prospectus thing that I thought, I can't remember if it was the overall team MVP or just the offensive MVP, but I picked Garrett Wilson because I thought he was going to make that kind of a jump this year. And we've talked a lot this year about how he's, until maybe this last game, was never the guy that has like the huge game. It's just the steady Garrett Wilson every week. He's reliable, but that makes it sound like he's a guy just getting the job done, and that's not the case either because everyone has seen the explosiveness in so many ways. Stephen, did you see something different or something that was can maybe put Garrett Wilson on the national stage with the way he played against Purdue? And there's still time left. This is still a wide open race. I know I agree with Doug that I think it's going to be difficult for him to do, but at least maybe get his name in the conversation. He wasn't even one of the finalists for the Biletnikoff Trophy that just came out. Chris Olave was. Garrett Wilson was not in that mix, even though he might be their most talented receiver right now.
It's funny. Ohio State's wide receiver room had two of the semifinalists. One of them is third on the team in receptions, and the other one is not even in the room anymore because he was the fourth best player, and now he's at Alabama. Secondly, everybody is allowed on Garrett Wilson Island. It is a consistently growing island. Everyone can come to that party.
No pizza crust, though.
No pizza crusts. None. In all seriousness, I think he is the epitome of what it is to cover this team. Boring good. It's not that he just gets the job done. It's just, think about it. He's a 5-star receiver. He was the number 2 receiver in his class. Okay, cool. He lived up to that pretty early on in his career, and he's just steadily gotten better every single year. There was a point where I think Ari Wassman was asking questions like, when is it okay to go overboard with the Garrett Wilson hype? And Ryan Day was like, not yet, because he was only a freshman. And so now he's just boring good. And so that I think he needed a game like Purdue to just kind of remind everybody that, hey, I'm here. Yes, Jackson's the new guy on the block who's having 15 catches in a game. And yes, Chris Olave is the guy over the top who's been awesome his whole career. And as we talked about before the season, might be the best wide receiver in program history. But this guy's just had the type of career that you expect from a 5-star recruit. And he's just lived up to that, and it's allowed him to kind of just be in the background doing it. So I don't know if there's anything he can do to get into the Heisman race or into any of these award categories as we saw with the Biletnikoff. We'll see what the All-American list looks like. But he's just been Garrett, man. And it's interesting and it's entertaining to watch. And it's more interesting to hear him talk about it because the 5-star talent is kind of backed up by the 5-star IQ.
The award stuff is an interesting kind of side conversation to have. I think the more interesting conversation for Ohio State is it a coincidence that they struggled against Nebraska and then Garrett Wilson comes back and the roof comes off again and they look awesome? I think it might be somewhat coincidental, but I think it's also maybe not coincidental. I think there probably is something there, and I think it's about how do they now take this fully healthy offense and all these skill guys and leverage them against the 3 opponents they have coming up, who are all pretty tough defensive teams, pretty tough teams overall. Get the text, 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. We'll be texting news and analysis all week leading into the Michigan State game. And listen to Buckeye Talk wherever you can find podcasts.